As Canada enters 2026, the political map in Ottawa is really razor thin. Mark Carney's path to a majority could very well hinge on a single floor crossing, but that advantage could disappear just as quickly if key MPs resign. All of this is unfolding as Canada responds, again, cautiously to Trump's move in Venezuela. Is Ottawa playing it smart or signaling uncertainty at the worst possible time and moment?
Yeah. First of all, there was breaking news just before we started the stream, and that is that Chrystia Freeland has announced she will resign as an MP on Friday. Now, originally, it looked like it wouldn't be for a few weeks when Vladimir Zelensky announced earlier this week that she was going to become a special assistant to him. Yeah. And she apparently had notified the Prime Minister on Christmas Eve that this was going to be taking place, and there seemed to be some kind of a breakdown in communication because Zelensky announced it just as the summit was opening in Paris. But it seemed to have caught the PMO off guard, and I think it may have even caught Freeland a little bit off guard as well, because the responses to this were a little awkward on this end of the conversation, to say the least. And the Prime Minister was asked about it when he held a news conference with reporters in Paris just earlier this week as to what's going on with Freeland at that point.
Ms. Freeland, Chrystia has served our country for well over a decade in a formal role as a parliamentarian, certainly in a number of ministerial posts, and served with great distinction. She was, I had her as my special envoy after she left cabinet for the Ukraine reconstruction. Judgment became her judgment that she could be more useful for that process as she was leaving, as she was retiring as a parliamentarian, as a direct advisor. My judgment was that taking that role would be consistent with resigning as an MP, and I welcomed her doing that, and I'm pleased that for Ukraine.
In another part of that response, when he would get into the greater scheme of things, he was talking about, well, you know, we're probably going to have a few empty seats this spring, and we're probably going to have a few by-elections this spring, and we will be running top-notch candidates, and the people will make their choice. So, it's no secret that there are a few Liberal MPs, former cabinet ministers of the Trudeau era, like Freeland was, who are looking for or waiting for specific appointments elsewhere as their goodbye package, and that's going to be happening sooner rather than later, and probably a little bit sooner than maybe Carney wanted, because before Christmas and coming back off Christmas until this announcement with Freeland was made, Eddie, that it was a numbers game. Okay, we've got another floor crosser from the Conservatives. Oh, we're one shy of a majority. And the speculation was that there would be at least one more Conservative MP coming across the floor between then and maybe the week before the end of this month, when Poilievre goes in for his leadership review.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been strategic in that fashion. Since then, we have a Conservative MP out in the Okanagan Valley coming out over the weekend and saying that the Liberals are headhunting Conservative MPs big time and offering them goodies if they agree to come over, which gets into a real legal question as to, are you being offered bribes? And if so, that's just against the law. And it's against parliamentary procedure. The Liberals have denied that. They haven't denied that they're talking. But apparently according to this one Conservative MP, and if you listen to some of the other Conservatives, the Liberals have been hard at work cold calling on Conservative MPs, trying to see who's at least thinking that maybe they're not happy in the Conservative caucus and looking for something better. And they were trying to, as Pierre Poilievre said, Carney's trying to get a majority by stealing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that could be so, but Pierre, don't be too quick to throw stones, because I think you live in a glass house too. If you're in the same position, that's not an uncommon thing. And I have no doubt that you would be, or your party would be, banging on the doors of Liberal MPs looking to see if you could bring a couple across the floor to get your majority. So don't try to befuddle us with that crap. You've got some issues to deal with, and it comes to a culmination at the end of the month with the leadership review. Carney, on the other hand, has some issues to deal with too. And, again, there's a lot of talk about all of these memorandums of understanding that have been signed regarding trade. And I have really tried to give him a long runway because, yes, you open the door. This is a sales job. You open the door, and once the door is open, then you go in for the final sale. But it takes time because you're building relationships, and relationships that had not been touched for 10 years under Justin Trudeau.
Yep.
Because he was too busy, with the fashion magazines and ridiculous costumes and trips to India and elsewhere, and surfing in Tofino and on Christmas break. At least he, spent time in Canada.
Shopping for his goofy socks.
Yeah, but there was nothing. There was in apologizing to every group and organization that felt they had been wronged over the years, tearing down statues and stop, just stop. Enough of this. Anyway, so it's going to take, we lost standing on the international stage big time. Big time. So, it takes time to repair that damaged reputation. But also, I heard somebody say the other day about it's one thing to be doing that, but you have to spend some time at home and actually govern too, and address the issues that are directly affecting Canadians at the moment. That has not really been the case. And part of that has been the fact that he's grappling with the minority government and trying to run Parliament like he has a majority government. He has some issues.
Dealing with the crap down south.
Dealing with the crap down south.
A lot of time. Takes up a lot of time.
It's taken a lot of time, no question. However, his response on the weekend to Trump was very muted in a lot of ways. I felt that it was very slow to come out. And Anita Anand did issue a statement on behalf of Global Affairs Canada. But again, it was like, why did you waste your time? And then Carney's statement was a little more in detail. And I know what Carney was doing. He's trying to be diplomatic, walk a fine line, yes. But every once in a while, you have to roll the sleeves up a bit and take a swing. You just have to. Because we are next door, And more than an imaginary line on the map, which apparently Trump doesn't like the way it was drawn, we have to really draw a line in the sand to say, we're not going to take it. I didn't really sense that in the response that he gave.
Right.
That's a personal opinion, but I know a lot of people were kind of left wondering, like, what's going on? And even some of the European leaders, their response was pretty weak as well.
I
Almost
felt
to the
like
point
that.
of why bother?
Well, I felt like that at the beginning when I heard it at the beginning, when I reread it. At first, I'm like, wow, that's kind of tame. I'm not going to say lame. I want to say tame. I use the word tame, considering what actually happened. And I was sort of debating this with my wife and thinking about it myself. I think this is just the nature of the situation and dealing with the insanity that is Donald Trump and his entire entourage, where say the wrong thing, what consequences are we going to have to deal with in the immediate? And Gary, right off the bat that it would be some sort of immediate retaliation of some sort that we have absolutely zero control over. So, Carney, along with the rest of the world's leaders, basically stood behind a lot of what the United Nations has been saying, that they believe in democracy, all the key buzzwords, believe in democracy, Venezuela should be restoring their government through democracy, and those types of statements, basically not coming out right and condemning Donald Trump, and not criticizing Donald Trump, but basically saying they stand for and abide by international law without actually pointing a finger at the United States for not abiding by international law. It's kind of like, here's our statement. Donald, why don't you read between the lines? Well, he doesn't know how to read between the lines. His people don't care about what's in between the lines. So I would agree with you in your statement. Well, what was the point? That I agree with. But I think that everyone's towing the line here because, just like you said earlier on, we don't know what is going to, consider a criticism of his policy in Venezuela as what I call a bowel movement. What's going to happen after Donald Trump has the next bowel movement? Nobody can predict it. Very unpredictable. He's got the entire world on its toes, on its edge, and they just have to be careful and be more diplomatic about it than they necessarily have to. I mean, holy smokes, Netanyahu, okay, is getting condemnation, not critics, not criticized, condemnation globally from the world leaders in terms of what's going on there. You know what? Maybe a little of that I would say would have been beneficial at this particular point, but you're not going to get it because it's Donald Trump.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Now, speaking of that, during the news conference in Paris the other day, the Prime Minister was asked about Trump's threat to Greenland, and this is what he had to say.
The future of Greenland is a decision for Greenland and for Denmark exclusively. It's their decision. Secondly, from a NATO context, the way I would frame it is that the western flank of NATO, which would include Greenland, the Arctic, is, given the evolving threat environment, is an area that we as NATO, Canada obviously importantly, given our geography, need to invest more in. This is a point that we've been making in recent years and since I became Prime Minister that we've really stressed. And with our buildup, that's just beginning of our military capabilities, we are making heavy investments in the Arctic. We'll be working with our Nordic partners. We'll be working through NATO. This is one of the issues I'll be discussing with the Secretary General as part of an ongoing discussion with him around this to further advance it. We're partners in NATO. It is a mutual defense alliance. We can provide that security. And when we look at a couple basic I mean, there's basic principles here, which is self-determination of nations, sovereignty, territorial integrity. And then there is approaches that we have as partners to what we're trying to accomplish. And as NATO, we can provide security for all of NATO, Greenland included. And as the threat environment is changing, we're making the investments in order to do that, and we can operationalize and augment and build additional plans to do that. So, and that's what we will do. And we stand with Denmark, we stand with Greenland. Our closest partnership is with the United States, and we'll work with everybody to make sure that we move forward together.
And you know something, Eddie? I saw a headline the other day as well, where Melanie Joly was talking about having a conversation with U.S. officials about the F-35s, and apparently to see if they can get a better deal based on the deal that Sweden has offered us. And I thought, what in the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
And hopefully, after this weekend and the comments that this guy has made, that you call off that meeting. Buy the 16, ship the money over, buy the 16 of them. God knows we've wasted that much money on other things. But cut our ties with this. I don't get it. Why are we going back? They had their best opportunity a couple of times. And then Sweden came in with a great product, one that really fits our needs, especially when it comes to the Arctic, which is an area that we really have to bolster our defense in. And we're going back to the U.S., and we're paying this exorbitant sum of money for these jets, 16 of them, and we're not even really going to own them. We're not even really leasing them. We're just handing over money, and we have to get permission to do everything, including repairs.
Right.
I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'll be the first to admit it. But damn it all to hell, what kind of business deal is that? And especially now.
Yeah. I get it. You know what? And okay, so you have Carney's response, which we saw. We both have our views and opinions on that. And then maybe briefly before we jump on to our next segment, Gary, is the response by Poilievre is congratulations to the Grand Poobah of the United States. My first thought was shock. Second of all, who the hell are you? You're just leader of the opposition in Canada coming out with a statement like that, which maybe misconstrued as a statement from a government official. What are you doing making a statement like that supporting the actions of the United States for what they did in Venezuela? And again, Gary, I have no problem with ousting a dictator. He was ousted. But how it was done, international law was broken. He pretty much kidnapped somebody out of the country. And who knows what the hell is going to happen later on. The Venezuelans are not going to see a penny from increased oil production, if anything. I'm not sure the American population is going to see a penny from this. It's all going to go to the Trumpster. So
exactly.
What are you doing in congratulating a dictator like Donald Trump? Let's call a spade, and I've said that in a long time. He is an authoritarian. The government of the United States is an authoritarian entity. It's a regime now, and it's entered that very clearly over the course of the last few days. What are you doing congratulating him? And you know what? I was still giving this man the benefit of a doubt. Okay, I want him to be a fantastic opposition leader and really holding Carney and the Liberal Party's feet to the fire to keep them in check. That's what checks and balances are all about. That's what made our governments work extremely well. Not perfect, but our governments work. Okay. What the hell are you doing? Now I'm saying, my God, thank God you didn't get elected as Prime Minister of Canada. Making a statement like that on the international stage during international outrage, it just proves to me that he would have been the worst thing for Canadians moving forward as a result of what is he trying to do? Get on the good side of Grand Poobah? Or what the hell kind of statement was that? It really floored me. I was really pissed at that.
And didn't the last line refer to down with socialism? Something along those lines?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. What does that have to do with anything at the moment? Really?
You know what? The late, great Brian Mulroney is turning in his grave. With a statement like that, and the statesman that he was, he's got to be rolling in his grave. Like, what the hell, man?
Yeah. Well, as you have witnessed
it, right? I did say Brian Mulroney. Yeah.
Yeah. As you have witnessed in some of the comments when we've talked about Poilievre in the past, we've been accused of being left-leaning, wearing our liberal hearts on our sleeves kind of thing. And, I've been accused of being a card-carrying member of pretty much every party provincially in New Brunswick and federally. So, obviously, I'm not coming out really one way or the other. But the fact of the matter is, I look at the local representative first, look at the party and the platform and the leader of the party, and weigh that all in perspective. And if some of the really hard right conservatives who have engaged in comments on our YouTube site, and I've responded, if you really want me to vote conservative, then give me something to vote for. And right now, I am sorry. I am not a Poilievre fan by any stretch of the imagination. Frankly, if I'm a CEO and he was, the next one down in the chain, on the food chain, I would have had him out the door long before this. Well, on April 29th. I would have given him the option of handing me his resignation letter, and if he didn't, then it would have been, okay, here's your termination letter.
Right.
And they cling to the fact they increased their vote. You may have increased the vote, but you didn't win the election. You blew, and he as leader and his campaign team blew a 25-point lead going into that election. They couldn't pivot and figure out how to take on the newcomer after Trudeau went. They couldn't. He hasn't let go of Trudeau. He keeps going back to Trudeau at times during question period. So, you blew the lead. You couldn't pivot to adjust to the newcomer on the scene. And in a political, newcomer, you couldn't do that. You lost the election. Doesn't matter how many votes you increased. Big deal. You still lost the election. And you lost your seat of over 20 years.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Very simple. And your personal popularity, and never mind the personal popularity, the party is, neck and neck with the Liberals, and that's fine. But when you have people going behind that screen to mark their X, they're thinking about the guy who's at the top as well as the local guy. And they may like what the party's saying, but then they look at the smugness in the phrases, the glitzy phrases, and they're not going to vote Conservative. So I say to Conservatives who are going to the leadership review later this month, give me a reason to vote Conservative. And I'll tell you right now, here's a broad hint to any Conservatives thinking about it. The reason does not include Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah.
Okay, I've said I'll stop.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry I opened that Pandora's box, but you know what, Gary? I thought it was at the tail end of our segment here. I thought it was worth a comment. I mean, we've been focusing on what Prime Minister Carney has or has not said or done, and I thought it was very appropriate to put the leader of the official opposition in Canada as a discussion point on our show. And I think we both voiced our opinion and our displeasure with A, what was said, and B, what he's actually not representing in terms of what you and I would like to see as a credible opposition leader. He's been failing on multiple fronts. So let's hope smarter heads prevail. As he goes into this leadership review, and I'm really hoping that they actually put somebody in charge that has got the whereabouts of what's going on in the world, what's going on in our country, and what our country actually needs. So, sorry, Gary, I brought it up, but I'm happy I brought it up.
All right, we have one more comment here, and it's on PP. So let's bring up the comments. There we go. All right, so if PP was in power, we would already be standing up every morning and pledging allegiance, and that's from Monel.
Mm-hmm.
Monel, given the response of the other day, you may not be so far off the mark.
Canada may be heading into 2026 with a government that looks stable on paper but fragile in reality. You know what? Like we said, a single resignation or a floor crossing could absolutely change the dynamics of this country's direction. Especially at a moment when strong leadership abroad may suddenly be required.